right. Hopefully, we should be okay.
It's all like a process.
Man, it is hard to see if this is actually working or not. Hey, there we go. All right. Hello. Welcome to the stream. Oh, we finally made it. We're getting the hang of it. And by we, I mean, man, live streaming is a lot more tricky to set up than initially thought. I'm trying my best, but man, it is pretty tough, like, structuring the streams. But you know, I'm glad that it's a work in progress, but it's happening at least. Well, hello. It's good to have you here. Yeah, I saw your comment on my last video for Dan Vask. Yeah. First off, thank you for commenting. It's very sweet of you to do. But yeah, Dan Vask. Oh my gosh. Really doing justice to that Daniel name, let me tell you. Nah, he's a really great vocalist, and I really enjoy listening to him. I'm excited to hear more of his stuff. And also, I've been creating a ton more content for... what is it? For home free. But man, home free copyright is my biggest struggle. I make no money off of any home free video. I'm fortunate enough just to have them still be public, let alone blocked. But man, getting home free through copyright is dang near impossible. So I might either lay back on some home free reactions just so I can bolster a little bit more monetized content, but it doesn't mean to say that I'm going to stop with home free content. But yeah, they might just not be as frequent as they have been, I'll say. But that being said, I already finished Everybody Walking This Land, but I'm a little concerned about that one, and I'll tell you why. The reason is because the messaging in that song is so forward and direct that most of the video itself, and it's a pretty long video, it took me over an hour to film, where most videos take me 35 to 45 minutes, and this one was over an hour, and I edited it down to about 40-45 minutes, somewhere in there. But it's more of just me discussing the philosophy and psychology of human nature, referencing books by Robert Greene a lot, and not so much in... And while there is a musical analysis of it in the video, like all of my other music videos or music reactions, there's not a ton happening in terms of the music, specifically the music for that video. It's very simple in its harmonies. It's very simple in its percussion, its beats. So I'm really interested to see how it goes. But on the other hand, I'm kind of nervous to post it because my music videos have been more targeted around just the music aspects themselves. I try not to do deep dives into the psychological or philosophical or sociological aspects of the messaging of videos. I try to stick to the music. But if a song is just so directly transparent and direct in its approach to its agenda or its message, then it's going to be a little bit more challenging for me to ignore it. And another example of that would be Home Free's rendition of Brother in Arms. And it's pretty much the main reason as to why I just can't post Dimash's The Story of One Sky. It's just too heavily focused in the messaging, and something that I'm probably going to do is I'll develop those videos, but have them more exclusive to Patreon when that's up and running, because that way, if you're actually subscribed to the Patreon, then I'd know that you guys actually don't just want to watch a reaction video to feel an uplifting way about a particular video, but that you guys are actually interested in what it is that I, as a person, am trying to convey, and my own views, and that you guys actually have a lot of interest in my worldview and how I engage with not just music, but storytelling as a whole, whether that's done through the medium of music or through anime or through gaming or through other exclusive content that will be available soon. But the message of a song is an integral part of the song. I don't think you can totally ignore it. I completely agree with you. And that's it's really challenging though. Like, in general, I feel like my felicity or my ability to appropriately express my thoughts is pretty good, but I also know that I'm a pretty socially awkward person. I have, when I'm communicating with people, it's very easy to misconstrue what it is that I'm attempting to convey, because I have a very particular mental view of the world and society, like we all do. But for me, I find that, at least when I engage with other people, I'm far more direct, blunt, to a certain degree harsh. And if people don't actually know my character and see the actions that I commit to on a regular basis and actually understand the kind of person that I am, people can very easily see me as antagonistic or just generally like a negative source of energy, when in actuality, like, my friend group is some of the most interesting and uplifting people I've ever met, and they deeply love me, and I'm so appreciative of them. But with that said, I'm constantly asking them for advice when I engage with others, because if I were to show them messages of, yeah, I sent this and I thought it was fine, and they're like, Daniel, that was not fine. And then they teach me and correct me more on social behavior. But man, I really, and that's actually part of the reason why I so invested in Robert Greene's books, because they help me understand more human psychology. I just finished one of Jonathan Haidt's books, and he's a very well-traveled and inspiring psychologist, and his books, or one of his books, I should say, has helped broaden my view as well of how to engage with others. But man, it is tough, man. It is really tough engaging with others in society without appearing too abrasive or too overbearing or harsh. At least from my personal end. Like I've mentioned in other live streams and videos, or an attribute to my personality is that I am recalcitrant. And I very much dislike others telling me how it is that I should behave and what morals, principles, and values that I need to have in order to exist within society. And I think that really kills a lot of the beauty of humanity, having differing values, ethics, principles, and morals. But don't get me wrong, I think society should be built on a like-minded common cause that allows us to grow and expand. Especially as ephemeral creatures, we're constantly trying to build society so the next generation can take it over and thrive more. But so to have a common set of morality and values, I think, is ultimately a good thing. But that being said, being able to engage with the world in a way that's authentically yourself, even if it challenges some sociological status quos, I always welcome challenge. I always advocate for the idea that one should be living in a consistent realm of discomfort. Not to say that one should like drown in discomfort, but just be beyond that edge of living in comfort and just allowing yourself to constantly grow. That's what growing pains are. It's a soreness, but or if you were to work out, if you have a certain soreness in a muscle group that you worked out, that's the muscles breaking down and building them back up stronger because your body is telling you, all right, well, if I'm going to be lifting these weights, I need to bolster up more to be able to lift these weights consistently. And if we could just grow more and have a little bit more of an open mind and an open heart, very similarly to what the Everybody Walking This Land says, and just be able to respect opinions more rather than just completely clash in, and actually focus on trying to build bridges and find commonalities with each other, while appreciating the differences that we have. I would think that would ultimately lead to general betterment. Brother in arms kills me. I lived through Vietnam. They were my brothers and occasionally my boyfriends. I appreciated seeing you cheer up. I really appreciate that. Yeah, my grandfather and my grandfather's brother fought on D-Day, and I can only imagine the absolute terror in that. Oh my God. Hit the thumbs up for our post. Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. The more likes this gets, the better the view for it would be. So I really appreciate that. I thank you so much. But yeah, that being said, I don't want to ignore the message, but also because YouTube is completely free and completely open to all people to watch and come in, some people have very specific objectives for watching videos, and especially music videos that people are emotionally connected to. Like, if a person is emotionally connected to an artist and they really love a particular song and they want to see a reactor react to it, it's not so much that they want to hear the reactor's honest opinion, even though that is an attribute of what they want. More than anything, they want to some of them want to re-experience the feeling of the first time of listening to that song. And for many of them, they want to see just this completely stunned, out-of-body experience happening to somebody else for the first time. And if that doesn't happen to that reactor, and even more so if they criticize that artist, then it's very easy for that person to become defensive, because now their emotional connection with that artist is now being challenged. And it's very easy to become defensive over that because you have an emotional stake in it that's being challenged. So when it comes to music, it's easier to be objective about the technique of something in music, which is why I try to stick to commenting solely on the music as much as possible. But when it comes to the messaging of music, that's much more of a personal, internalized interpretation as to what the music can mean. There's obviously the superficial layers that these are the lyrics, these are what the lyrics mean, and this is the context for the lyrics. But then if you go more into the subtext of the message, understand the nuance and the arduous, or just the immense layers of complexity within that nuance, then it becomes a completely new discussion outside of the more objective technicality of the musician's musical style. So if I am going to discuss more on the messaging of music, that might be more exclusive to Patreon, because I know that those of you who would join that would be more interested in my actual thoughts about something than wanting to just re-experience an artist's particular performance, if that makes sense. But that being said, it doesn't mean that I'm going to completely shy away from talking about the messaging like I did with Brother in Arms. I talked about it there as well. And I actually got a comment for somebody criticizing me based on because I believe they just misinterpreted what it was that I was trying to express through the messaging of the piece. But it's also very difficult to express the kind of person that I am as well, since your only exposure to me is directly through this camera. You guys don't see my actions in my day-to-day. You don't see the things that I try to build for myself and my successes and my failures along the way. So it becomes very challenging to try to express what it is that I'm trying to express without sounding too aggrandized or overly righteous, self-righteous. So I'm trying to both provide thought-provoking ideas that you can internalize however you see fit. I'm just presenting ideas forth, and I hope to expand my own horizons through your own insights, because by no means do I ever claim that my own insights are perfect in any way. I know that in pretty much every aspect of life I'm heavily flawed, and my main goal in all of it is to just seek betterment and improvement and do what I can to not be as pathetic as I was yesterday, and just constantly keep expanding my horizons, my education, my growth as a person. And that's actually what inspired me to want to travel the world, meet as many people as possible, engage with as many cultures as possible, and build as many bridges with others as possible. Ultimately, just recognizing that no matter your race, no matter your nationality, no matter your values or your ethics, your principles, your morals, that even if your morals, values, etc. are antithetical to mine, so polarized, that there can still be some legitimate insight within the way that you live your life. Even if it means that I've just collided with a wall, then at least I know that the way in which you live your life is against the way that I would want to live my life. So thank you for helping me narrow down my path, my direction, not making it so I'm just completely caught and stuck in this choice paralysis. And the more I engage with others, the more insight that I allow into my life, and the more and the easier it is for me to actually connect with others in a way that doesn't directly strike them as being antagonistic or offensive, but without losing my directness and my bluntness and sometimes harshness. But understanding the kind of person that I am, and knowing that how much I deeply love humanity and how much I deeply love human potential and what I genuinely hope and aspire for all people, is the more that people tend to recognize that, the more that they see my directness coming from a place of kindness and compassion. But it does superficially appear very harsh and abrasive. So I try really hard to manage that in a way where it's not like an immediate foray or a sale on any one person, but they can understand immediately that this is the kind of person that I am. This is the kind of stuff that I'm trying to achieve, and I am unrelenting in my goal for betterment, and nothing is going to stop me or derail me from this constant pursuit. On a lighter note, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure is the single most religious film ever made. One commandment: be excellent to each other. Cool. I don't typically watch a ton of religious films. When it comes to... Oh, man. I'm going to very briefly touch on this because I don't want to go too far into depth on this. Again, very similar to the messaging conversation. It's probably going to be more exclusive to Patreon in that way, because this is so internalized. This is such a personal and internalized conversation to have. But just very briefly touching on it, there's value and insight to be gained from it. I wouldn't call myself religious, but many of my principles have been derived from many philosophies and religions. Like, I grew up in a household with 2 different religions from my parents, and from that I expanded into different philosophies as well, not just off of those 2, which was Catholicism and Judaism, but I also explored Buddhism, I explored Stoicism, I explored a bit of Taoism, and I continue to explore these philosophies and find valuable meaning and insight within them. Not to say that I utilize all of their practices or utilize the philosophies in very core key ways, but there are many ideas, like very raw ideas, that I get to the absolute pith to, or I capture the pith of and incorporate into my life and experiment to see, is this something that really resonates with my life's task? Is this something that I can utilize for my benefit to better not just help myself, but better help others, better help my environment, etc. So are you the sort of person who believes that we should tolerate intolerance? No. I'm more or less, well, that question is very charged, and I don't necessarily care for the way that question is phrased, but I think I understand what it is you're trying to ask. And no, I don't think that if a person, like, what I will say is, if a person has become very jaded and very bitter because life was very cruel to them, and they see a bunch of other people that are living a much healthier, happier, better life, and people just can't get out of that cycle of acrimoniousness and ill will towards others, then I see that person to be more like, I feel a sense of poignancy when I see those intolerant people, not a sense of righteous retribution or anger. Like, how dare you be intolerant towards this group of people? Like, trying to understand the context as to how that person became bitter. Because I don't think anybody would just choose early in life to grow and become bitter, if that makes sense. Like, there has to be a series of like events in their life that just life is constantly beating them over the head with, where it just comes to a point of them just being completely jaded and falling into despair, into their lowest instincts consistently. I'm not saying that we should tolerate intolerance, because intolerant people are just, well, it depends on how you internalize intolerance, because some people might internalize intolerance in a way that is more superficial than the actual depth of how far intolerance can go. But I am saying that if you engage someone who is truly intolerant, that it would not hurt you to approach them with a little bit of nuance and a little bit of compassion, but also understanding the fact that it is not your responsibility to try to correct them. It's not your responsibility to try to ostracize them from society because they don't adhere to the morality of the sociological status quo. But at the same time, you know, there are just some people who are beyond help. And we have to pick and choose our battles, I think. So approaching someone with kindness, but coming from a position of strength, to an intolerant person, I feel is presently, at least in my view, presently, the best way to navigate it. It's not to accept their intolerance or tolerate their intolerance, but if someone is just so bitter in life, I feel a good step forward towards being able to build a bridge with that person is, instead of just completely exiling and ostracizing them, just saying they're completely beyond help. I think a good first step is actually listening to them and understanding where it is they're coming from and sitting down and communicating with them. Obviously, we can't do that towards all people because there's 8 billion people in the world, and it's impossible to understand the extreme depth and nuance of each individual person's life and experience. But just showing a little kindness towards people who might appear very antagonistic or people who have done wrong, and showing a little sympathy towards them, I think can go a really long way, especially if their life has just been constantly looked down upon and beaten to their knees consistently, that it resulted in a certain level of jadedness and bitterness against the world, saying, I can't rely on anybody, I can only rely on myself, screw you, screw this, all this stuff. And it's just too much. It's too much. And it's not anybody's responsibility to take on their own burden or to take on other people's burden. So on one of my whiteboards here, there's a quote by Viktor Frankl, and I will read it now because I think it's very apt for this discussion. It doesn't matter what we expect from life, but what life expects from us. As we are questioned daily and hourly by life, our answer must consist not in talk and meditation, but in right action and right conduct. Life ultimately means taking the responsibility to find the right answer to its problems and to fulfill the tasks which it constantly sets for each individual. When a man finds it's his destiny to suffer, he will have to accept his suffering as a single and unique task. He will have to acknowledge the fact that even in suffering, he is unique and alone in the universe. No one can relieve him of his suffering or suffer in his place. His unique opportunity lies in the way in which he bears his burden. And Viktor Frankl is a concentration camp survivor and brilliant psychologist. And he actually came up with an idea that he coined known as logotherapy. And it's a really interesting concept that I definitely believe is worth exploring in his book, Man's Search for Meaning. And the beautiful idea of that is just the fact that it's the very cliche saying that we're all going through something, so treat everybody with kindness. It's very cliche, but there's a lot of power behind that. And the very raw idea of it is exactly what that quote is insinuating. We're all suffering, and we can't, and I truly believe it's wrong to foist your own suffering and injustice that you're experiencing onto others. So to know that all of us are struggling with our own challenges and adversities arduously, but still doing our best to go out of our way to show kindness to others, to show compassion to others, especially to the people who have just been completely beaten to their knees, who have completely given up on life but haven't committed suicide because there's still some semblance of hope that they just cling on to. But because they're desperately clinging onto that hope, they've become very jaded, very bitter, very raw, because they're just hardening themselves around life instead of holding onto it with a firm grasp. And it's very difficult to melt away that raw hardness. And I don't expect anybody to try to melt that away from intolerant people, but just keeping an open mind to others. I've sat down with people, with homeless people, and have had lunch with them and have asked them about their stories and asked them about how they ended up here and their plan of action moving forward. Some of them are just all into drugs, completely lost their mind and just too addicted and couldn't break free of it, and that's tragic. But some of them just had misfortune after misfortune from events that were completely outside of their control, and yet still have the temerity and audacity to keep moving forward. And that is so inspiring to me, just to be able to know that you're down on your luck, that so much of life is based off of cause and effect. And one person's actions might ripple out and just end very quickly, but some might transform into big waves that can impact other people's lives indirectly. And it's imperative that if you're just dealt a bad hand, even from birth, and you're just consistently experiencing misfortune over and over and over again, yet you still have the impregnable will to keep pushing forward through that and to aspire to better things, to cultivate your character, to cultivate a level of discipline that allows you to experience true freedom. I think that that's the most awe-inspiring elements of humanity. It's resilience and its drive towards wanting betterment, not just for ourselves and our own selfish mindset, but towards the promotion of goodness in humanity as a whole, as a collective. So I'm not saying that intolerant people are right by any means, and we should tolerate intolerance. I really reject that idea. But what I am saying is to approach those types of people with strength, but with also sympathy and compassion, unconditional positive regard, if you will, then I think that can go a really long way. I really do. For many people I've met who were very bitter, the moment I approached them with an open ear and an open heart, but let them know that these are very clear established boundaries of which you are not going to cross, but just allowing them to know that I am genuinely listening to them and I am genuinely taking an interest in their life, that could be the first time in their entire life that they've ever experienced someone willing to do that, especially a stranger. Like, something that I really enjoy doing, I haven't done it in a couple of weeks, but I absolutely should start it back up again, is I take a chessboard to a local cafe and I just set it up. I read my book in the meantime. I study a language in the meantime, and if someone just wants to approach me and play a game or play a few games and just talk about life and talk about our understanding of the world, then we do that. And I get to really meet and engage with other people and understand their life and livelihoods. And it's such a beautiful human experience. And one person I met who was very down on his luck turned to religion and tried his absolute hardest to turn me to religion as well. It's a matter of really respecting the fact that it was a really beautiful interaction, because when he turned to religion, his life just completely turned around, and he was just in this hugely new, beautiful, happy place from a life of violence and terror into this place of warmth and cushioning. And he wants to impart that onto others, that feeling of warmth and comfort. And even though that's not necessarily for me, the fact that he had my best interest at heart was a very beautiful thing to recognize. And I really appreciated him for his time and his insight, and it was a beautiful interaction, and I never saw him again. But I don't need to, because that interaction itself was beautiful. I need to catch up. I kind of feel a little sorry to the chronically intolerant. They're missing out on so much really good stuff. I got some angry looks for listening to Mexican rock called Mana They Rock. Yeah, I mean, I've heard of Mana. I haven't heard any of their music, but I've heard of the group. The chronically intolerant are just, like, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the zombie film Warm Bodies, but there's this idea that there are the zombies, and then there are the zombies. And the zombies are the too far from gone zombies. Just completely unhelpable, just act solely on instinct, don't even have thoughts in their mind. And there's the regular zombies that do have thoughts, still act on instinct, but more just actually see the world and are actually able to be helped. It's more like, if you're judging it based off of a yellow, red, green system, regular zombies are the yellow, green is the healthy individuals, the human beings, and the red are just the too far gone zombies. So the idea that there are people just stuck in that yellow, a little sympathy, a little kindness and compassion can go a long way, is all I'm saying. But still setting the boundaries and allowing yourself to not get caught up in drama. There was a quote from, it's not on my board. Oh man, I'm trying to remember the quote, and I'm not going to remember it off the top of my head. But essentially, I would rather discuss ideas and concepts with people than engage with gossip or drama and gossip and discussing other people, especially behind their backs. I just hate it. It just bothers the absolute living crap out of me. Personally, I think that all of us are optimistic, because I don't believe anyone is an actual pessimist. An actual pessimist would end their own life. I definitely think that's one way to approach that particular subject, and I don't see any fault in that way of thinking. We all have our own internalized impressions of pessimists and antagonists and intolerant people, and we just have to engage with them in a way that makes sense to us. Obviously, I don't think that when a person is down, and this is something else too, when we engage with people who appear very rugged, very intolerant, or just very cold, we typically see them as that's their entire character. And that's the kind of person they choose to be. And I really don't think so. Very similarly to your point of people not choosing to be pessimistic, people end up like that. That's the result of people's lives in action. Maybe not like the only thing we can ever really control in this world is our own action. We can't control everything in our environment. We can't control everything in other people. We can't even control other people at all. We can try to manipulate and play power games, but I feel like most of us on some level recognize that as unscrupulous and Machiavellian. So the idea of it just being doing what we can to just better ourselves so we can better other people, I find to be very important and imperative. Their recorded music is great, but live in concert, their riffs are so tight, you could slide. That's awesome. I should be sure to check them out. But I want to try to stick to this core group of musicians I have right now, and then the more I grow, the more I'll expand into new artists and fields of music. Excuse me. Gotta hydrate. I should get more water at some point. Oy vey. But yeah, that's my 2 cents, maybe 3 cents. I added a lot to that conversation, but ultimately, that's how I feel about that. Man, like typically these are topics that I reflect on and think about a lot. I just don't really express them to the public view that much because they could be easily misconstrued as an acceptance of tolerance, and that's why I really want to make a point that I do not accept intolerance. Like I mentioned in other videos, I have 5 friends, and that doesn't mean to say that other people outside of those 5 friends don't view me as a friend, but it's more of how I view what a friend is. And to me, being a friend is a full-time job that you are 24/7 on call for. If a friend were to call you at 3 a.m. and say, I really need to talk to you, you are there without second question. And you are there with an open mind and an open heart. You have allowed space in your life for this person because you genuinely deeply care about their well-being and who they are and you genuinely want the best for them. And that is so emotionally enervating to be there for multiple people. And I don't want to stretch myself too thin, so my core group of 5 friends is great. And the beautiful thing about them is that they come from all different walks of life. Like one of my friends, he is my closest male friend, and he and I pretty much could not be more different as people. The way he engages with the world is polarizing to my experience engaging with the world. His political views, religious views are there are some similarities, but overall they're pretty antithetical to each other. The way just everything is just so different, but I love our differences. I don't want to surround myself with yes men. Like, I want to be able to surround myself with people that engage with the world in a unique way that's outside of my own worldview. I love being able to engage with others in a way that just promotes like further exploration of different ways of living life. And on top of it, He is one of the funniest, most compassionate people I've ever met in my life. And I met him just after he found permanent shelter from being homeless for a long time. And to know that he just added so much value to my life and goes out of his way to be the kindest, most compassionate person he can be while being 100% unapologetically, authentically himself, he's just so inspiring to me. And I can only hope that my action can inspire him as well. And very thankfully, even though we don't see each other in person a lot, we talk to each other several nights a week, usually. And on a couple of those occasions, we were just telling each other like how inspiring each other's actions have been in our own lives and what we draw from each other in order to better ourselves. And that just meant the world to me. You know, he came from a completely different like life environment than I did. Just growing up in a black household and just completely being kicked out when he was a young teen and fending for himself, where I had a more or less a pretty comfortable life growing up, give or take a lot of just familial drama that scarred me in some key ways. But ultimately, we had our own challenges and upbringings that we really can't compare, but we've already discussed them together. And to know that we better ourselves through each other's experience, I find to be really beautiful and really impactful, which furthers my point of saying whenever I see a homeless person on the street, it actually really pains me, not just because they're homeless and I feel sorry for them, but because every single person on this planet has the potential to be my friend. And it's like seeing a friend just hurting or caught in this consistent loop of addiction and despair. And I completely understand all too well what it's like to be caught up in addiction and despair. So to be able to recognize that other people are struggling with the same struggles I faced and have very fortunately have conquered, you know, I find it my responsibility to live my life in the best way I possibly can, in the way that makes the most sense to me, while also doing what I can to not just better myself, but better the lives of others, and better my environment around me in any way that I can without imposing my will onto others, without imposing a certain set of values or principles that I find to be correct onto others, because other people might have their own sense of value and morality that they genuinely think is correct. And as long as it doesn't impose on the wills of others and cause direct harm to others, you know, they're entitled to that. So, you know, like, if we live in a free country, it's our prerogative to have an open mind and cultivate our own sense of value and worth based off of our own lived experience. On a really light note, your studio is oppressively monochromatic. I know. Yeah, I can't. This is my little apartment, and I can't paint anything. I can't add anything. But also, I live very frugally. I really don't buy anything for myself. In fact, like 95% of my wardrobe is just gifts friends and family have bought me, and I just wear freely. I don't wear anything with logos or with words or pretty much anything like that. I'm in terms of the things that I really don't even buy anything for myself, because those things don't really add value to my life. Like I was mentioning, the things that add real value to my life are going out to the world and broadening my horizons, doing what I can to better myself and others, and just being on this journey is what actually provides real value to me. So if I were to buy anything for myself, it would feel very hollow, and I wouldn't enjoy it as much as I would enjoy going out into the world and engaging with others and engaging with my own thoughts and reading and all of these other things. Like, well, actually, I suppose that I do buy things for myself, but they're just like books, essentially. And my collection of books is in the other room. So, but yeah, like I have one piece of artwork, and it was painted by my mother, and it's in the other room. But it does add a lot of vibrancy. I really love flowers, and I really love being able to smell flowers and just really appreciate their color and their structure. And one of the most beautiful moments I ever experienced in my life was when I was a barista, and this little like 6-7-year-old girl gave me a little yellow dandelion, and it was a little broken on the stem, but I looked at it and I took it from her when she gave it to me, and I almost cried. Like, it was such a pure moment of kindness and compassion, while also knowing that she was giving me something that I really genuinely appreciated. Like, when I go to the park to pick up trash, something that I really enjoy doing in between picking up trash, because it's just constantly using that extension claw gripper to put into the bag, that after a while it just cramps my hand a little bit, so I take a break in between. And in that break, I'll usually just sit in this small little patch of dandelions and just feel so alive and happy to be surrounded by these little plants. And I'll maybe walk to a rose bush and just smell the flowers and just enjoy that, and look up at the sky and appreciate trees and nature and shrubs and the mountainous terrain, and it all just being in nature just makes me so happy. But yeah, I live very frugally is my point. So I'm sorry my place is very monochromatic. It is what it is, and I really don't have an issue with it, but I'm sorry that it might bother some. You have an inner circle, and then everyone else is on the fringes, still good with them, but they don't have your fullest person as a friend. Well, it's not even an inner circle. It's these people are my friends. And everybody outside of that is a colleague or acquaintance, because I haven't engaged with them enough to know what their actions are, to know what their intentions are. They can view me as a friend, which is great for them, and I have no issue with that. But for them in my life, I structure my life in a very specific way, which is always open to expansion and interpretation. But the way that I internalize it is, it's just very tough being a true friend to someone. And if I call you a friend, that's because you've earned that title. You've proven to me that you are someone that I can really appreciate and depend on, and know that you have my best interest at heart just as much as I have your best interest at heart. And regardless if we argue, fight, or have disagreements on how it is that we should navigate a particular issue or topic, we know that regardless of those things, that it's coming from a place of compassion, and we don't second guess that or question that for even a split second. And that to me is what a friend is. And it's very hard to find those qualities in a very, I don't want to say fake world, but in a world that is just constantly promoting drama and superficiality. So that's why I'm very selective as to who I call specifically a friend versus an inner circle versus just broad friend thing. Yeah. I was told that I was being insulting to you by calling you sweet face. Am I? It's gently meant, not demeaningly. I mean, anyone can be a Daniel, but it takes someone to really be a sweet face. Oh, that's really considerate. And no, I don't consider it insulting at all. Like with a couple of two of my girlfriends, I call them love. Like, hey love. And it's not because I have direct romantic ties to them. It's just because growing up, my grandmother called me love. My mother called me love from time to time. And, you know, it's just something that is comfortable for me to tell people that I really love and appreciate. And calling them love is letting them know that I deeply love them. Not in the sense of romance, because love doesn't have to be romantic, in my view. Love to me is the highest level of respect, appreciation, and trust you can have in a human being. And therefore, I can love my friends. And just as much as I can love a partner, but with that love, there's just an additional element of romance attached to it. But it doesn't take away from where the real value is, which is in that utmost level of respect, trust, and appreciation. Like, for me, the scale is acquaintance, friend, partner. Like, in order to be my partner, you need to be my friend first, and being a friend takes several months, if not years. Like, I'm both a very simple person, yet a very nuanced person. So if you have the patience to bear with me, hopefully I can add some semblance of value. But many people are not, and it is what it is. But no, to answer your question, no, calling me sweet face is fine if that's what makes you happy. I take no offense to it. It's actually pretty hard to offend me. So you do you. You take joy in experiencing life more than materialistic things. That's pretty sweet. I think so. But thank you so much for that kind sentiment. I really appreciate that. It's something that I find more rare in others, but, you know, to each their own, whatever makes them happy. I just found what makes me happy, and it's just not materialistic goods. And that kind of drives my friend group insane because they have no idea what to ever get me for the holidays or my birthday or anything. Because I tell them I really don't want anything. I just enjoy spending time with you. So we usually try to find some kind of restaurant that we can appreciate each other's company in, or some kind of new food experience, or some kind of theme park, or some kind of experience where we can just share time together. That to me is a really great gift, but not like a materialistic good. So yeah. A shirt with color bought at a thrift store, or a colorful bed cover? Well, it's hard to tell in the camera, but there are some really nice rich blues and oranges on this bed cover, and under it is this nice, really deep musky blue, which I really love. I really love the color blue. I love the color green and yellow and red as well. But man, blue just sings to my heart. But yeah, it's I do have color, and like when I was writing down vocabulary words, when I was trying to enrich my vocabulary in English, let alone in the languages that I was learning, such as German and Japanese, my flashcards are colorful. Like, over there I have orange flashcards. Right here I have green flashcards. you can't tell, but on one of the boards behind me, it's written in different colors. Like, I love colorful things. I just don't surround myself with them. It sounds really bizarre, but I don't know. I'm just comfortable with it. It's really hard to explain the irrational. A friend of mine explained that people on the spectrum Asperger's have only very few close friends like me. And that's perfectly fine. You know, like most things in life, I feel like it's just a giant spectrum. And it's not a matter of falling on it or not. It's a matter of where we fall on it, where it's either very little to nothing to the highest extreme of it to everything in between. And that doesn't directly correlate with just autism, but with everything, whether it's a community of people revolving around a certain hobby or interest or a certain political association or religious association or a certain opinion about something that people might disagree or agree with, or just even beyond disagreeing and agreeing, but just having, yeah, I agree with these elements, but these elements I don't agree with, and having some nuance in that. It's just a full spectrum. It's something that I find very common in Western society, especially, is we've adjusted ourselves to be very compartmentalized, and we constantly direct things as very binary, where it's, do you support this? Well, I support this idea, but with these nuances. Okay, so if you don't fully support this, then you're supporting the enemy. And it drives me nuts, that kind of thinking. Like, we as humans are very nuanced people with our own worldviews and our own experiences about things, and some elements of something might ring true for us, where other elements of the same thing might not ring true for us. And to allow nuance and perspective, like, if people say, do you support this particular cause? For me, supporting something is just as heavy as a decision as being a friend. Supporting something means that you are actively, at your own inconvenience, going out of your way to exert your own energy into contributing to a certain cause or idea. And that could be very enervating, like just very draining on a person. Not just saying, yeah, I support this just so I can appear righteous, or just so I can allow people to see me in a certain light. Supporting something is actual work, at least in my opinion. So honestly, just like, there's ideas that I think ring true for me, but it's not as though I can really put myself in a position to fully act on them, because I have a very busy schedule as it is, and I always want to try to make time to decompress, either by myself, because I'm very introverted and I enjoy a lot of time by myself, and not just by myself in terms of just being in my apartment working on videos, but just enjoying my space, maybe playing a game, or just watching a video from a guy that I really enjoy listening to, or reading a book, or just taking a shower with a small candle, lighting the room. It's just little things like that just help me with my mental, that I try to allot time for. But outside of that, my schedule is pretty busy consistently, communicating with others, job hunting, and structuring the Patreons, filming a ton of different videos and content, and having to edit them, making thumbnails, committing to all of the languages that I put subtitles in my videos for. It's very arduous, and it's a lot of work. So for me to take the time to go and support a particular cause that's fighting an injustice, you know, we live in a world where we have this very strong like care foundation where if we see an evil in the world, we want to tell the world that we're against it, to make others see us as, like, I guess perceptually righteous. But at the same time, it's, if I see an injustice, I can absolutely recognize that injustice is wrong, but you got to pick and choose your battles. You know, you can't put your absolute all into every evil you see in the world or every injustice you see in the world without destroying yourself. And if you are capable of that, I think you're a freaking saint. Like, putting in that level of work, drive, and dedication against every evil you engage with in the world is so just crushing. Like, very much after I graduated college, I tried to start a nonprofit for the shooting victims of the Las Vegas mass shooting. And my nonprofit was called Art Heals Lives. And I got a bunch of paintings from that were donated from colleagues of mine who were artists. I obviously knew a lot of performers, vocalists, and talents that all agreed to come to the venue and perform their art, and 100% of the proceeds went directly to the shooting victims. And I wanted to keep that up, not just directly to the shooting victims, but to promote this nonprofit as a way of extending to all forms of injustice. But I very quickly realized that the level of work and drive, and it was just to maintain that nonprofit, it was so crushing. Like on top of my work schedule at that time, I was busting like 100 hours a week. Like, I was just crushed by that kind of workload. And then I started like being able to pick and choose which battles I can fight, and understanding, yes, this is more closely connected with me. I feel much more of a drive to really fight this particular injustice, or to support this particular cause. But it's very similar to the way that I view making a promise to someone. It's having integrity. It's understanding that your work is probably going to go unnoticed, and doing it anyway because you know it's the right thing to do. Or it's also a matter of, like I said, making a promise. If you give your word to someone, your word needs to mean something. And you need to be able to commit to it. If you don't think you can commit to something, don't give them your word. Don't make the promise. And whenever I give a promise to a friend of mine, they know how serious I am, because they know that my promises have real depth and weight to them, that I am going to do everything I can to fulfill that promise. And that's what I think it means to really have that level of honor and integrity that I don't see a ton of in Western society, unfortunately. In Druid philosophy, blue is a color of peace and healing. That is awesome. I don't know a lot about Druid philosophy, so that's really cool to know. I typically, I used to play a lot of D&D, so when I think of like healing and bard classes, I think of greens, like herbal healing magic and things like that. And when I think of blue, I think of calm, meditative, flow-like states, very peaceful, rain, perhaps. very cleansing in that way, and that's what I really connect with. I love being in the rain, not driving in it, just existing within it. OCD is very much a spectrum phenomenon, which means that there is no way to enumerate those with OCD, which FWIW, I'm not quite sure what that means, drive those with serious OCD crazy. Yeah, I can absolutely understand that. When I was in high school, I knew someone with very legitimate, like, high end of the spectrum OCD who was just constantly ripping her hair out. And it drove her nuts when people were just constantly calling everything OCD, like, oh, I have OCD because I need to have the volume on an even number, or something like that. And it's very similar to the concept of trauma, where people say, I have, oh yeah, like, this person yelled at me and therefore I have trauma, where you look at a war veteran and who's completely shell-shocked and has PTSD legitimately, and it's not to discredit the level of which these people have a certain level of operation under these spectrums, but to the people that have the high end of the spectrum and just see people who are very nonchalantly expressing their quote-unquote disabilities with these particular attributes, I think that's definitely pushing it too far. You know, have respect towards the people that are very legitimately suffering from those conditions. You pick up trash at the park? That's right. Well, yeah, I mean, it's just something that makes me happy. And even though, like, I tried to do it once a week, but my schedule just kind of got out of hand, and it's more like once every 2 to 3 weeks. But yeah, whenever I get the opportunity, or even if I don't get the opportunity, I will purposefully, if I don't do it for long enough, just completely set aside an entire day, or at least half a day, that I can just wake up, relax in my morning routine, head out to the park, put in my earphones and listen to an audiobook, a podcast, some music, whatever, and just enjoy bettering my environment in some small way. And even though I know that there's going to be more trash the next day that I'm not going to be there to pick up, and even though I know that what I'm doing isn't necessarily the biggest impact, it really makes me feel good knowing that I'm at least doing what I can in that moment, and that makes me feel really happy and very self-assured. To quote Spaceballs, funny, you don't look Jewish. Great film. Elven Fighter Mage. Mel Brooks is Mel Brooks is freaking awesome. I love Mel Brooks. I remember the first thing I ever saw Mel Brooks in was Robin Hood Men in Tights. Ah, man. That's also the first thing I ever saw Dave Chappelle in, ironically. It just really, really good humor. Different times. But yeah, I love just... I love D&D class stuff, and I'm going to put this out for the record. I think the most overpowered stat in all of Dungeons and Dragons is charisma. If you max your charisma, you can charm anything. One of my campaigns, one of the people in my party just maxed everything into charisma. Had essentially no hit points, no defense, no offense, no healing, nothing but charisma and insight. And pretty much every sticky situation we got into, we got right out of it. We encounter a bone dragon, charm it, bone dragon is now the pet. Like, It's just remarkable how great of a stat charisma is. It just blew my mind. It just. What time is it? Let's see. Started at 1. Yeah, we can go for another 15 minutes. But yeah. Man, I have been talking through this so much that my throat is starting to hurt a little bit. But yeah, you guys have any questions, any insights that you want to particularly bring up or ask or anything like that? Because if not, I am just going to talk about an interest for the remaining time. And I will give just a little bit of time for that. Man, dude. My character had a werebear for a sidekick. Yep, high charisma. Exactly. Oh, so good. Werebears are awesome, though. Like that's a great option to have. Man, I stuttered a lot there. But yeah, so yeah, in terms of the interest, I'll say, and I've expressed this before, but I'll say it again just because it's just something that makes me really happy. One of the very few places that my family and I really hardly ever had any screaming matches with, or any challenging hard times with, or anything like that. One of the few places that just didn't have any of those was Disneyland. And Disneyland holds a very sentimental place in my heart. Like, not to say that I really enjoy what the Disney company has been doing recently, but the actual location of Disneyland and like the place that Walt built in pursuit of not just imagination and creativity, but a place where people of all ages can just enjoy each other's company and enjoy their time in. Like, being able to, one of the things that I really, really love doing is engaging with places that have historical that have a historical presence. Like, when I visited San Antonio and I visited the Alamo, that was an incredible experience standing in that place. Or visiting the Sacramento Train Museum, I found to be just absolutely wonderful. Sutter's Mill, the place where a bunch of people from all around the nation traveled to California for a gold mine. It was incredible and beautiful. Sitwiwa hiking trail, Native American Reserve hiking trail. That's just an incredible hike, and I love just being on that trail. But pretty much any place that has historical relevance, I really love visiting. And the fact that Disneyland is a place that just has, while not ancient or several hundreds of years old or anything like that, just the idea that a place can be so filled with the intention of just enjoying each other's company, enjoying your company as a family or as friends, and just engaging in a realm of fantasy and creativity and kindness. I don't think there's a lot of places like that. And it also holds, obviously, not just nostalgic value, but value from that's one of the few places my family and I just didn't yell at each other or didn't impose our wills onto each other. Just a place where we can just enjoy each other's company and enjoy the place we were in. Like it's very cliche to say, obviously, not just because it's Disneyland and they reflect this, but that place really is magical to me personally. And the place, again, not the company, but just the place, it means a lot. I love being there whenever I'm able to go. But unfortunately, I do live pretty far away from there. And also, it's just egregiously expensive to go. So whenever I get the opportunity, I do my best to enjoy every waking moment. Sort of off topic, is there a memorial for the Port Chicago disaster? For the Port Chicago disaster, I'm not completely sure. Like, I did visit Chicago, but I'm not completely sure. I would look that up. But if there is, I would love to visit it. Because I do know of the disaster, but I don't know if there's a memorial for it, which personally I think there should be and would be, but you never know. But yeah, I'd look that up. My promise to you is show you around historical Philly, but it'll take 2 days. One of the historic real estate and the Museum of Art. I would love to visit the Museum of Art. Like just recently, I had my first visits to the Broad and the Getty, and that was amazing. But I'm also kind of a nightmare to visit museums with. I am someone who loves detail. Like, and that's one of the reasons why I actually really love Disney, because a lot of their attractions and draw-ins are just filled with just very intricate detail. And I love being able to observe the craftsmanship and the detail that they put into many of their, not just rides, but just general attractions. So when I go to museums, I get really close to the painting to look at the detail, to look at the brushstrokes. And people that work at those museums are like, back off. And the people I go with are usually kind of embarrassed because they have to come to me constantly because I don't remember the back off like 10 minutes later because I'm just drawn to the next thing and I'm like, ooh. So I'm kind of a nightmare in that regard, but man, I love detail and my vision is so terrible, so I have to get close to stuff. But man, yeah, I love it. Port Chicago is in the San Francisco Bay. Oh, dang! I did not know that. Well then, yeah, I'd love to check that out. We have an Impressionist collection that is world class. Ooh, that's really cool. I think that's awesome. Art's just really captivating, like in a myriad of different forms. Impressionistic painting or minimalism, cubism. Oh man, what kind of art did Andy Warhol do? It was like a press kind of painting. Heck, even things as bizarre as Jackson Pollock's types of painting are interesting and conceptually mind-boggling on some levels. But you have to be willing to look past the superficial layers of paint and try to understand the reflection of what it's supposed to indicate, which I think a lot of people just don't really care for or care to do. But yeah, when I visited the Broad, I went there with my partner, and she was saying, and she really enjoys oh man, what's his name? It's I'm not gonna remember it. Oh my gosh. But the Broad was featuring this artist that she really loved, and I went there with her, and it was just so whimsical. But there were some really intense pieces, but there was a lot of very whimsical, very intricate pieces, very grand pieces to very base pieces on Post-its, and like there's the level of creativity that one mind can have, just really, that can fill up an entire museum. It just really goes to show that, you know, human potential is just boundless. Human capability is just boundless. Pollock delight me, Van Gogh destroys me. Yeah. Van Gogh is he's a hauntingly, beautifully terrifying artist. What's an artist that or Van Gogh, I should say. But yeah, like there's so many different styles of engaging with art, and it's just boundless, and that's just something I just love so much about human potential and capability. Will our gracious host react to the home free video Vincent? Yeah, sure. I'll add that to the list right now. Vincent. Hold on. I did not spell that right. Vincent. There we go. And yeah. Oh, wait. Vincent by home free. There we go. Save. Yeah, I'm assuming it is about Vincent Van Gogh. And yeah, I'll be sure to hear that. That's actually a home free song I've never heard before. So not even when it came out, however long ago it came out. So I'm really I'm really excited to hear that. Thank you for that recommendation. I didn't know included was. Oh no, I'm not including him with the Impressionists. I'm just including him as under the umbrella of just artists and painters. But yeah. All right. Well, we are rounding out to that time, and yeah, we're just rounding out to that time, the end of the stream. So if you guys have any last minute questions, either now is the time, or we'll just hold off until next week. And I'll wait just a little bit for that because I also really have to use the restroom. And I want to make sure I have enough time to work out today. Well, all right. Then, with all of that said, things with home free invent. Oh, that's so cool. That is so cool. I'll be sure to check that out then. Yeah. Well, I mean, I was already going to, but you've increased my hype for it. Don McLean is really cool. That's awesome. That's really awesome. Yeah, something I love about Home Free is they have their egos in check. It's harder to find in popular musicians. Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, I'm really excited for that now. That'll definitely be a video that comes out within the next while. But yeah, in terms of the next music videos coming out, they should be Everybody Walking This Land, which I'm still a little skeptical on. We'll see. But the one before that is going to be Jeff Castellucci's Monster Mash. So that'll be really exciting as well. I had a really good time with that one. Gosh, I love Jeff. Thank you. I have the link to Vincent. I will put it in the comments on the page on the live chat. And oh, great! Thank you so much. But yeah, with all of that said, I really appreciate you guys being here. Like, when I started doing live streaming, I genuinely expected that nobody would be here and I would just be talking to myself for hours just to leave up on YouTube so people could eventually get around to it, hopefully. But very similarly to me launching the channel, I didn't expect anybody to view my content or to engage with it as much as you all have. And it just means so much to me that you guys are here. Like, I really can't express my gratitude for you guys. So thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your kindness and your insights and perspectives and all of that jazz. And again, it really does mean a lot. So thank you so much for being here. And I will be sure to see all of you in tomorrow's video. Have a great rest of your evening, everyone.